Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to share and subscribe the channel. Navari tensed as the transport ship docked at Outpost Helios, another human arrival, exactly what this volatile peace zone didn't need. She adjusted the ceremonial blade at her hip, a nervous habit from her years in the Thalassian elite guard, and straightened her posture to its full intimidating height. "Commander, Dr. Hayes has arrived," her second-in-command reported, voice carefully neutral. "Fine. Send him to medical and inform him I'll inspect his credentials at 1800 hours, Vex kept her tone clipped, professional. The scar tissue that ran from her left temple down to her jawline tightened as she frowned, a permanent reminder of the last time she'd trusted a human. The peace treaty between humans and Thalassians was barely 2 years old, the wounds of the decade-long conflict still fresh. This remote outpost represented the hesitant first steps toward cooperation, a place where both species could work together on shared scientific and medical projects, in theory. Dr. Elliot Hayes stepped into her office precisely on time, his dark eyes taking in the sparse military decor with a quick, intelligent assessment that Vex found irritating. He stood at an acceptable distance, neither aggressive nor submissive. "Commander Navari," he said, offering the traditional Thalassian greeting gesture rather than a human handshake. "Thank you for accepting my assignment to Outpost Helios." Vex didn't return the gesture. "I had no choice in the matter, Dr. Hayes. Your credentials were approved by Central Command." Her pale blonde hair, braided tightly against her scalp in the warrior tradition, caught the artificial light as she circled her desk. She deliberately used her height advantage to look down at him, noting with annoyance that he didn't seem intimidated. "I understand this is a difficult posting," Hayes said, his voice carrying unexpected warmth. "I've studied the medical texts you sent ahead. Fascinating work on regenerative therapy." Vex narrowed her silver eyes. "This isn't a research sabbatical, Doctor. You're here to provide medical care to both human and Thalassian personnel without bias or preference." She leaned forward slightly. "And remember that you have no authority beyond your medical bay." Hayes nodded once. "Of course, Commander, though I hope we might collaborate on." "We won't," Vex cut him off. "You'll find I maintain strict professional boundaries, Doctor. Do your job, stay within your parameters, and we'll have no problems." Something flashed in his eyes, not anger but something more complex. "May I ask a personal question, Commander?" "No." A small smile touched his lips. "Fair enough." Vex found herself unexpectedly unsettled by that smile. She gestured toward the door. "Lieutenant Krav will show you to your quarters and the medical facility. I expect a full inventory report by 0800 tomorrow." Hayes hesitated at the threshold. "Commander, for what it's worth, I requested this assignment specifically." Vex stiffened. "Why?" "Because peace doesn't maintain itself. It takes work, especially from those who have seen the worst of war." He touched his own cheek briefly, mirroring the location of her scar. "Good evening, Commander." As the door closed behind him, Vex released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She'd encountered many humans during the war and after, diplomats, soldiers, scientists, none had looked at her quite the way Hayes had, as if he could see past the scars, past the uniform, past the carefully constructed walls. "Don't get close," she whispered to the empty room, a warning to herself more than anything. Close meant vulnerable, close meant trust, and trust, she'd learned the hardest way possible, was a luxury a warrior could never afford. The alarm blared through Outpost Helios 3 weeks after Drive Hayes' arrival. Commander Vexer sprinted toward the security center, her heart hammering against her rib cage. "Status report," she barked as the blast doors sealed behind her. Lieutenant Krav's fingers flew across the holographic interface. "Unidentified vessels, Commander. 3 small craft, heavily armed. They've disabled our long-range communications." Vex scanned the tactical display, her mind calculating possibilities. "Raiders. They're targeting the medical supply depot." She activated her comm unit. "All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill." She turned to Krav. "Evacuate all non-essential personnel to the underground bunkers. I want a defensive perimeter around the medical supplies." "Commander," Krav hesitated, "Dr. Hayes is still in the East Wing laboratory." Vex cursed under her breath. Of course he was. The human worked constantly, often late into the night cycle. "I'll get him." Secure the outpost. The corridors flashed with emergency lighting as Vex ran toward the laboratory, her hand on her weapon. The first explosion hit just as she reached the research wing, throwing her against the wall. Pain bloomed across her shoulder, but she pushed forward. "Hayes," she called, coughing through the smoke filling the corridor. She found him gathering critical medical supplies, surprisingly calm amid the chaos. "Commander, what's happening?" "Raiders. We need to move now." She gestured toward the emergency exit. Hayes nodded, slinging a pack of supplies over his shoulder. "Lead the way." They made it halfway to the evacuation point when the second explosion hit, much closer this time. The ceiling collapsed in a shower of metal and debris. Vex reacted instinctively, shoving Hayes forward out of danger. Pain erupted across her back as something sharp tore through her armor. The world tilted sideways, darkness clawing at the edges of her vision. She heard Hayes shouting her name, felt hands dragging her forward, but everything seemed distant, underwater. Vex drifted in and out of consciousness. She caught fragmented images, Hayes face tight with concentration, the emergency lighting reflecting off surgical instruments, his hands steady despite the chaos around them, pressing against her wounds. "Stay with me, Commander," his voice cut through the haze of pain. "That's an order." She wanted to remind him that he couldn't give her orders, but couldn't form the words. Instead, she focused on his eyes, human eyes, brown with flecks of gold, filled with determination and something else she couldn't identify. "I need to remove the shrapnel," he explained, his voice impossibly gentle. "It's dangerously close to your vertebral ridge." In her pain-fogged mind, Vex realized they were alone in one of the emergency medical stations. The sounds of battle continued in the distance. "Why are you?" she gasped as pain shot through her side, "not in the bunker?" Hayes didn't look up from his work. "Couldn't leave you. Thalassan physiology is tricky. No one else could handle this injury. You could die." His hands paused momentarily. "So could you." "I made an oath to heal, Commander." "It doesn't specify species." As unconsciousness claimed her again, Vex found herself wondering why this human, this enemy she'd been taught to fear, was risking his life to save hers, and why, despite everything, she felt safe in his hands. "You are the worst patient I've ever had," Dr. Hayes declared, checking Vex's wound dressings. "And I once treated a Martian drill sergeant with 3 broken limbs." Vex glared at him from her recovery bed 1 week after the raider attack. She was healing, but far too slowly for her taste. "I have an outpost to run." "The outpost is still standing, thanks to Lieutenant Krov's leadership while you were unconscious." Hayes adjusted something on her medical monitors. "Another day of rest won't kill you." "Inactivity might," she muttered, but settled back against the pillows. The attack had been repelled, but barely. 6 personnel injured, 1 dead. The raiders had escaped with a portion of their medical supplies, a significant loss for the remote outpost. What bothered Vex most was the raiders' precision. They'd known exactly where to hit and when. "You're thinking too hard," Hayes commented, pulling up a chair beside her bed. "Your vital signs spike when you brood." Vex turned to study him. The human had worked for 36 hours straight during the crisis, treating the injured without rest. Even now, exhaustion lined his face. "Why did you request this assignment, Hayes?" she asked suddenly. "The real reason." He seemed unsurprised by the question. "My sister was at the Battle of Proxima Centauri." Vex went still. Proxima Centauri had been one of the war's bloodiest engagements, thousands lost on both sides. She survived, thanks to a Thalassan field medic who treated her despite standing orders to prioritize their own wounded. His gaze met hers steadily. "I wanted to return the favor, to prove that cooperation isn't just a political ideal. It's how we both survive." Something shifted in Vex's chest, a loosening of a knot she'd carried for years. "I lost my bondmate at Proxima," she said, the words emerging before she could stop them. He commanded the destroyer Vengeance. Understanding dawned in Hayes' eyes. "I'm sorry." "It was war," she said stiffly, but the customary bitterness felt hollow. Hayes reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and rested his hand near hers on the bed. "Not touching, but close. War ends, Commander. Eventually." The next 3 days brought a strange new rhythm. Hayes would check her wounds each morning, then linger to share reports from the outpost. Sometimes he brought meals to share, introducing her to Earth foods. Chocolate became an unexpected weakness, while she taught him about Thalassian cuisine. He never pushed past her boundaries, respecting her space while somehow making his presence something she began to anticipate rather than endure. On the fourth day, when he helped her take her first walk around the medical bay, his hand steadying her elbow, Vex realized with alarm that the walls she'd built so carefully were developing hairline fractures. "Don't get close," she warned when his fingers lingered a moment too long against her skin. Instead of pulling away, Hayes met her gaze directly. "Too late, Commander. I'm already here." "You don't have to keep doing this," Vex said as Hayes arrived at her quarters with dinner, 2 weeks after she'd been released from medical. These evening meals had become routine. "I know," he replied, setting out containers of food on her small dining table. "I want to." Fully recovered, Vex had thrown herself back into her duties with doubled intensity, as if trying to outrun the growing connection between them. Yet each night, she found herself allowing him into her private space, their conversations stretching longer into the station's night cycle. Tonight, Hayes had brought a bottle of amber liquid. "Earth whiskey," he explained. "Thought we deserved a celebration." The supply convoy arrived safely. Vex poured 2 glasses, studying him over the rim of hers. "You've integrated well with the crew. Even the security team speaks highly of you." "High praise indeed." His smile reached his eyes, crinkling the corners. "Though I get the impression their commander still has reservations." Something electric passed between them. Vex took a deliberate sip of whiskey, letting the burn distract her from the heat rising in her chest. "My reservations are well-founded. This," she gestured between them, "whatever it is, complicates the mission." Hayes leaned forward. "Does it? Or does it advance the mission's true purpose? Proving our species can do more than just coexist." The whiskey had warmed her, lowering defenses she normally kept rigidly in place. "There are things you don't know about me. Elliot," he corrected gently. "When we're alone, at least." "Elliot," she conceded, his name feeling strange and intimate on her tongue. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. This time, she didn't pull away. "I'd like to know those things, if you'd share them." Later, she couldn't recall who moved first, only that the distance between them vanished. His lips found hers, hesitant at first, then with growing certainty as she responded. Her silver-blue hands framed his face, the alien warmth of his skin intoxicating. "Vex," he whispered against her neck. "If you want me to stop, don't." Her voice was raw with need as she guided him toward her sleeping quarters. "Don't stop." Their bodies discovered each other with wonder, familiar in function yet beautifully foreign in form. Where Vex expected clinical detachment, she found reverence in his touch. His fingers traced the ceremonial markings along her spine, the battle scars on her shoulders, learning her body's map with the same careful attention he gave his medical studies. In the aftermath, lying in the tangle of sheets with her head on his chest, listening to his alien heartbeat, Vex felt terror and peace in equal measure. "What happens now?" she murmured against his skin. His fingers traced lazy patterns through her pale blonde hair, now loose from its warrior braids. "Whatever we choose, I think. The regulations don't specifically forbid interspecies relationships," he finished. "I checked." She laughed, a sound so unfamiliar it startled her. "Of course you did." His expression grew serious. "I know you're scared, Vex. So am I. But I've never felt this way about anyone, human or otherwise." The words she'd been warning herself for weeks rose to her lips, "Don't get close." But as she looked at him, bathed in the soft light of her quarters, the warning transformed. "Don't get close," she whispered, pressing her forehead to his in the Thalassian gesture of deepest intimacy, "unless you plan to stay." The diplomatic shuttle arrived without warning, its clearance codes bypassing standard protocols. Vex stood at the docking bay, her formal uniform uncomfortable after months of the outpost's more relaxed standards. Beside her, Elliot maintained a professional distance, though his presence steadied her. The airlock cycled open to reveal Ambassador Torin Dravik, his aristocratic Thalassian features set in diplomatic neutrality. Behind him stood a human woman in Alliance uniform, Major Diana Wells. Vex's blood turned to ice. "Commander Navari," Dravik greeted her with a formal hand gesture. "A private word, if you please." In the conference room, Wells spoke first, her voice exactly as Vex remembered from 8 years prior. "You look well, Commander. Outpost command suits you. What do you want, Major?" Vex kept her voice level, though her hands trembled beneath the table. Dravik slid a data crystal across the table. "We're here about Proxima Centauri." Vex's heart stuttered. "That battle is history." "Not entirely," Wells replied. "New evidence has surfaced suggesting the Vengeance wasn't destroyed by Alliance forces." The room seemed to tilt. "What are you saying?" "Your bondmate, Commander Krell, transmitted encrypted data before the ship's destruction," Dravik explained. "Data that implicated high-level Thalassian officials in illegal weapons development." "That's impossible," Vex whispered, though a part of her had always questioned the official narrative. Wells leaned forward. "We believe the Vengeance was destroyed by Thalassian forces to silence Krell. And we think you've been hiding his final transmission all these years." Vex stood abruptly. "This meeting is over." "Commander," Dravik's voice hardened. "If these accusations are true, you'll be charged with treason. The peace treaty itself could collapse." She fled the conference room, moving blindly through corridors until she found herself in the observation deck. The stars beyond the viewport offered no comfort. "Vex." Elliot's voice came from behind her. "What happened?" She turned to him, her composure fracturing. "They're going to destroy everything, the outpost, the peace, us." She didn't say. He crossed to her, professional distance forgotten. "Tell me." And so she did. About Krell's final message, his discovery of the biological weapons program, her decision to hide the evidence rather than risk reigniting the war, how she requested this posting to ensure the peace held, to honor what Krell had died for. "I buried the only copy of the data in the outpost's foundation during construction," she finished. "I thought it was the right choice." Elliot was quiet for a long moment. "What will you do now?" "I don't know," she admitted. "If I reveal the data, the treaty might collapse. If I don't." "You'll sacrifice yourself," he finished. "Neither option honors what your bondmate died for, or what we've built here." Vex looked at him, this human who had somehow become essential to her existence. This outpost is proof that our species can do more than fight. What we found together." He took her hand. "It's worth fighting for. There must be a third option." Understanding dawned slowly. "The Raiders, their targeting was too precise." Elliot nodded. "Someone wanted those medical supplies. Or wanted to test our defenses. The same someone who might have ordered the Vengeance destroyed," Vex realized. "If we could identify them first, bring them to justice under the joint tribunal. We'd need allies. People we trust on both sides." For the first time in years, Vex felt something like hope. The path ahead was dangerous, they would be challenging powerful figures in both governments, but looking at Elliot, she realized she was no longer facing the darkness alone. "Don't get close," she had warned him again and again. Too late now. He was already there, standing beside her at the edge of the abyss, offering not just his heart but his hand in the fight to come. "Together, then?" she asked, the question carrying all the weight of her warrior's oath. Elliot's fingers interlaced with hers, human and Thalassian joined. "Together."